Hello, my name is Diamond Ochoa, and today I will be describing wound healing. So, for the healing of wounds, it includes usually 4 stages, which include bleeding, inflammation, growth, and then remodeling. Inflammation is a normal response to injury or stress. The blood vessels and affected tissues dilate and become more permeable, allowing fluids to leak into damaged tissues. Inflamed skins may become reddened, swollen, warm, and painful to touch. However, the dilated blood vessels provide the tissues with more nutrients and oxygen, which aids healing. The specific events in the healing process depend on the nature and extent of the injury, and that's kind of what I'll be talking about for the rest of the PowerPoint. So, for cuts, breaks in the skin must heal to prevent infection and loss of blood. If the breaks in the skin are shallow, epithelial cells of the epidermis along its margin are stimulated to divide more rapidly than usual. And then the newly formed cells fill the gap. If an injury extends into the dermis or a subcutaneous layer, blood vessels break, and the released blood forms a clot in the wound. A clot consists mainly of a fibrous protein, fibrin, that forms from another protein in the plasma of blood cells, and platelets trapped in the protein fibers. Tissue fluids seep into the area and then dry. The blood clot and dried tissues form a scab that covers and protects underlying tissues. Epithelial cells proliferate beneath the scab, bridging the wound. Before long, fibroblasts migrate into the injured region and begin secreting collagen fibers that bind the edges of the wound. Suturing or stitching or otherwise closing a large break in the skin helps speed up the process of healing the wound. It's usually used if the wound is severe. As healing continues, blood vessels extend beneath the scab. Eventually, the damaged tissues are replaced and the scab sloughs off or just falls off over time. In some cases, extensive production of collagen fibers may form an elevation above the normal epidermal surface called a scar. In large open wounds, healing may be accompanied by formation of small rounded masses called granulations that develop in the exposed tissues. A granulation consists of a new branch of blood vessels and a cluster of collagen-secreting fibroblasts that the vessel nourishes. In time, some of the blood vessels are resorbed and fibroblasts move away, leaving a scar largely composed of collagen fibers. Right here is a picture, which is an example of a scar. Going on to burns. Burns are classified by the extent of tissue damage. Slightly burned skin, such as from a minor sunburn, becomes inflamed, warming and reddening as dermal blood vessels dilate. Mild edema may swell the exposed tender area, and a few days later the surface layer of skin may peel. Any burn injuring only the epidermis is a superficial partial thickness burn or first-degree burn. Healing usually takes a few days to 2 weeks with no scarring. Right here is an example of a minor sunburn. Continuing with burns, a burn that destroys some epidermis as well as underlying dermis is a deep partial thickness burn or second-degree burn. Fluid escapes from damaged dermal capillaries, accumulating beneath the outer layer of epidermal cells, forming blisters. The extent of healing for a deep partial thickness burn depends upon stem cells that are associated with accessory structures of the skin. These structures include hair follicles, sweat glands, and sebaceous glands. They survive the injury because although they are derived from the epidermis, they extend into the dermis. During healing, the stem cells divide and their daughter cells grow onto the new surface of the exposed dermis, spread over it, and differentiate as new epidermis. In time, the skin usually completely recovers and scar tissue does not develop unless an infection occurs. A burn that destroys the epidermis, dermis, and the accessory structures of the skin is called a full-thickness burn or third-degree burn. The injured skin becomes dry and leathery, and it may vary in color from red, black, or white. Because most epithelial cells in the affected region are destroyed, spontaneous healing occurs by growth of epithelial cells inward from the margin of the burn. If the injured area is extensive, treatment may require removing a thin layer of skin from an unburned region of the body and transplanting it to the area. Right here in the picture, the third hand underneath is a picture of a third-degree burn. You can see it's pretty bad compared to the other burns. For my resources, I use the McGraw-Hill 2015 Holes Anatomy and Physiology book and this YouTube video linked here.